I'm so excited to be here with Kelly. I can't wait for you guys to meet her and just like hear about her life and philosophy and all the things, her book that's coming out um, for our next interview. So let's see, where do we even begin? I think one of the things that is just the most potent and powerful, and that also feels unfortunately, in a way, like it's more needed now than ever, is a deep dive into Kelly's work on sovereignty and like philosophy around freedom, especially for women, this moment when that is like kind of under attack. So,
Mm.
why don't we like just dive into the deep end if you want to start off by telling us a little bit about yeah, like what is your philosophy and if you feel to share anything about why now in this political moment, it's like more important than ever, have at it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I can definitely roll with that.
Right? It's like, why
Um,
should we, let's not waste time. Who knows how long we have.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, women's sovereignty is, I think, so central to where the kind of pivot point for the world and what we're seeing right now. You know, we've had a long run with women playing various roles in patriarchy, and we've seen how this has impacted everything from mental health, addiction, uh, kids well-being, the planet's health, and all the things like that.
Yeah.
And where my work intersects with this is in supporting women in building practical resources, both inner and outer, in um, I mean, really, like, I'd love to reinstate global matriarchy. So that's the direction we're heading now.
Yeah.
And yeah.
What great. I think most people watching this will be like, same. But for
Yeah.
the one or two who are like, what is that? What how would you put like global matriarchy? Like what is that and why would it be beneficial?
Yeah, great question. We see, well, first of all, a lot of people don't know that the world we're living in is not like the norm. It's not just the default.
Right.
We don't
It's not how it
know.
had to be.
Right, right. And that, for most of human history, we've lived in matriarchal and matrilineal tribes and small communities that were run by groups of women, essentially,
Yeah.
where men are treated fairly and, with respect, but they had their place, right? And there's a chapter in my book called "Putting Men in Their Place," which is like sort of like funny, but it's sort of not
Right,
because that's
right, like,
exactly
wink,
what
wink,
we're
but
doing.
also literally, like, you have a place,
Yeah.
it's important, but it's, like, not this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing about a women-run society is that children's needs are centered.
Yeah.
And, whereas by contrast, the world we have today, we have adult agendas interfering with children's, healthy development in so many different ways. The education system, the healthcare system, the family court system, just the fact that you know that the institution of fatherhood, that most people see that as being normal and primary, even to over the mother child bond, which has been um, in so many ways just like devastated beyond recognition. And I'm
Yeah.
laughing just because, like, what else can you
What
do?
else
But
can we do? No,
yeah.
absolutely, I get it, that you're not like, "Ha, ha, ha, devastation." It's like, "Okay, like, what like, how do we respond in the face of this?" Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so everything is so messy right now. And it seems like there's no easy solutions, or, how do we go back? How do we start from where we are now?
Yeah.
And and it's not like I don't have all of the answers, but central to my work is finding practical ways to start from where we are now as
Yeah,
individuals and collectively as
yeah,
well to move towards this world that we
yeah,
want to create.
yeah, absolutely. It sounds like you've had this, I don't know, like this primary focus on like freedom and liberation, but it's come with a deep philosophy and like knowing and understanding around care and like what
Mm,
what is missing in our current setup, which is, and like correct me if any of this doesn't land right in terms of your wording, but like what I'm thinking is like, women, especially mothers, especially single mothers, are like kind of abandoned and on their own. And it's like,
mm,
this is the opposite of what a flourishing society like needs and should have and even would want, because it's in everyone's best interest that children are taken care of, and it's in everyone's best interest that mothers are supported. And instead we just see like, good luck. You're on your own. And if you try to do
yeah,
anything even outside of the confines of a setup that's like already pretty shitty, you're like gonna be completely on your own. Like if you try to break out of
yes,
this like nuclear family structure,
right.
capitalist structure, it's heaven forbid you want to be like traveling the world with like your daughter doing whatever the fuck you want. And it's like we have a system for that.
Yeah, right, and if you fail, then it was all your fault,
Yes.
you
Oh
shouldn't have
my
deviated
God.
at all.
Right.
But if
Right.
but then if you conform and it goes wrong, then, well, maybe you should have thought about that before married him
Right.
or
Right.
whatever.
That's actually somehow
Yeah,
your fault too. Surprise. Yes, we're powerful
yeah.
enough for everything to be our fault. We're just not powerful enough for it to be trusted with our own freedom. Yeah.
I love how when the freedom and the care, because so much of like when people talk about freedom, I mean, it's obviously a very politicized term,
Right.
but it has a very like the patriarchal feel to it. You feel like
Yeah.
you're in some like war veterans den smoking a cigar or
Right.
something.
A flag
And it's
is
like,
waving.
is this I don't know, like, I like to say that, like, when, like, people refer to The Matrix, it's usually men talking just about the parts of patriarchy that they don't like. They want
Yes.
freedom from everything, but they don't want freedom for women,
Yeah.
and that's not part of the picture, you know? And so but what I found was that in my personal life, I really want freedom too. I do not like being told what to do,
Right.
I resonate strongly with, a lot of kind of freedom-based rhetoric,
Yeah.
but the problem is when men are in charge of this freedom movement,
Yeah.
like, it's not necessarily safe for women and
Yes.
children,
Right.
and not just because the women aren't free, really, but because we aren't there's no point in human history has there been an example of a successful and sustainable male-led society. So if we're gonna do something new, like, it's not gonna be done
Yeah,
that
you're like,
way.
my Roman
No.
Empire is actually every goddamn empire, and they were all doomed because they were all led by
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And like the version of freedom that I've built, it's personal in a sense. It's not, um, because at this point, I think we are taking a lot of individual actions, and freedom is still kind of, and that's part of the patriarchal design, is that freedom is something that we consider for ourselves individually, but we don't really conceptualize like
Yeah,
what collective sovereignty
right,
would look like.
yeah,
But I think there is a lot of it that does start with the individual, the inner work and um, in order to function as a society where everyone um, is living in their fullest expression, we can do that together. And it's also work that we can do alone to uncover ourselves
yeah,
so that we are giving our best
right.
to ourselves and our loved ones and to the world, you know?
It's a different vision of power, and I think this is what
Mm.
can get so misunderstood, especially by men, is that no one I know at least is seeking matriarchy that means and we oppress you instead. That's like actually just not, it would be kind of understandable if that was what the goal was, but it's not. Like, it's not even what I hear you saying. I hear you saying, like, there would be a reprioritizing of needs, and that would
Mhm.
probably mean people who, like, right now get all the prioritizing would have less. That could feel oppressive, but that's not actually oppression, like a redistributing of care so that actually the people who need it most and like the most vulnerable in a community, which is usually children and often mothers too, it's like, yeah, that would actually that would lead to collective flourishing, not the like we'll just be in charge the way you've been in charge. And so of course you'd be afraid of that because you can see the way you've treated everyone else.
I mean, not to mention the biological impossibility of women oppressing men in the same ways. Like,
Right.
we
Also that. You're like, "Well,
yeah,
but
I
if we
mean, that's
well,
we literally we couldn't do that, so it's kind of a straw man argument to
it
begin
totally
with,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, men and women are different. We're
Yeah,
different. I write
yeah.
about this more in my book, but,
Right. Well,
yeah,
actually, that's a great segue because I wanna
yeah.
talk about your book. So, in fact, I'd love to hear not only anything you wanna share about the book itself, but also your process of writing it and, like, what it's been like for you to birth this and, like, let it come through you because it feels so relevant to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
So the book the book has been, like, the most challenging creative project I've ever taken on, for sure. It is absolutely, like, I don't know, it's, like, rebuilt me from the ground up. It's been a very transformative process for me, which makes sense because using my voice just due to my personal history and, being a woman, um, and saying the things that I'm saying, even just to you, in this interview, I mean,
Yeah.
these things have been buried for millennia, and we haven't really there's a lot of things we haven't said out loud, and my book is a place where I say all of the things out
Yeah.
loud, and
Yeah.
so it has been extremely like, all of the ancestors are triggered, just like we we are just barely hanging
They're
on,
like,
you know?
"No, we don't
Yeah.
want you to die." And you're like, "I know, I know."
I'm like,
You
"What's
bring
the
this
worst
for
that can
all of
happen?"
us.
Like, I've lived in a car before, It's like
Yeah.
Um, so sorry, you asked me something else besides you said, about the book. Uh, yeah, it shares it's part manifesto, part memoir. It shares a lot about my personal journey, like how I got to where I am today in terms of, just the mental, um, the perspective that I have now.
Yeah.
And also, you get to see in the book how I learn some of the strategies that I teach other women now in
Yeah.
terms of,
Mm.
gaining financial sovereignty and emotional sovereignty and this kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
it's a
It's so
mix
great.
of yeah, essays and personal narratives and frameworks and,
I love that.
stories. Yeah.
What I will say too is that I know a lot of people who have wonderful work on more conceptual women's empowerment, freedom. They're like have a vision for flourishing for us, but they don't give you the steps on how. And that's fine. That's like a different mission. But what I love about your work is that it's both. There is
Mhm.
a lofty vision for humanity and for each of us as women and whoever wants to, but you're also like, literally, here's how you can have multiple streams of income and get a house with bad credit and move abroad with your daughter. Like, it's like
Yeah.
literally you give us the tools, and some of them are going to probably feel like not the perfect fit for some people, but some are going to be like, oh my God, this is the lifeline I needed. And I think there are going to be a lot of people who are like, no, I needed every single one of those. This like applied to
Mhm.
me. And even if, and I know we've talked about this before in our private conversations, but it's like, even if some of the exact steps aren't like the thing I need in this moment, being able to think about it that way is the gift. So it's like, okay, I might not be buying the house in Goa that you just like gave me the tools to go get with no credit,
Mhm.
but like the thought now of what that could spark, and like maybe the next time I am ready, or it like sends me down the path of like taking a few more steps toward thinking about like housing in a different way. And like that's just one of the many like pathways that you give
Mhm.
people tools for. But real estate's a big one, and housing and security, especially for women who don't feel like they've got the financial foothold that a lot of men would, or that, whatever, people with like lots of generational wealth would have. You're like giving people tools for actually creating a life of freedom, whether that's through their business, online, or through real estate, or through other things. And that's so rare to have the blueprint
Hmm.
and the steps and the support all in service of this vision of like women being supported.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, everything you said is real, it's we're often left, like, with the ideals that we have, but we don't know it's like, "Where do I go from
Yes.
here?" Like,
Yes.
for women who are, like, recently divorced and raising kids, maybe they're, like, in a shelter
Yeah.
or living on the streets like I was when I was homeless,
Yeah.
And, or, any of the situations that women can end up in just in a split second by one turn of fate or whatever, or one man's signature, you know and a judge's signature, whatever, and how do we actually, how do we work with what we have,
Yeah.
and how do we learn to see resources all around us, because it's not, like you said, it's not just about teaching specific steps. I
Right.
think that someone who relies on very specific steps, could still be lost with
Yeah.
what I teach, because with the most valuable thing that I can offer is actually the frequency of it, the perspective shift of starting to see the world in a new way and starting to see ourselves in a new way. And because once you unlock that,
Yeah.
then you don't necessarily even need any steps, I mean, they can be helpful, and I have a lot of little,
Yeah.
strategies, but, when you can kind of reclaim your perspective on the world and build a vision, then, like, that's when you're unstoppable.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And to have somebody be the living proof that you can create a new reality. I mean, not to be cliche, but like it just is so true. It's like
Yeah.
someone can look and be like, well, literally, like that shows that it's possible for me. Like if she
Mhm.
is able to do this and she's now living in Portugal and like has a book that she wrote, and like I can like deepen into her life, and it may not be exactly my same story, but like it's enough to get my wheels turning. And I feel like that's really one of the gifts of mentorship and the gifts of like sharing our story all together. Cause it's like you could have just been like, I found about the freedom, like I'm out of here, bitches. And instead you're like, I'm sharing this. Like, let me share what I've done. Let me share how I learned this. Like, even what you said about how the book includes insight into like, how did I build the toolkit that I now share with my clients? And it's like, what a gift. That is so generous that you would turn around and like basically like extend a hand to us so that like we could come too and like take the pieces of this that we need.
Hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, thank you. It's generous in a way, but it also helps me
Yeah.
because, there was, I don't know who said this, but I think someone wrote a book about it, and I'm sorry that I don't know their name, but that there are actually, 6 stages of grief, and the 6th one is where you make meaning of your experiences. And for me, that involves giving back in a way,
Yeah.
and it's it's not just I mean, it is selfless, but it's
Yeah.
also, when we use our creativity to alchemize loss and life's disappointments and trauma and all of these things, like it just up levels like the beauty of our lives and
Yeah.
the richness and the enjoyment of it so
Yeah.
much more because you're not feeling like the past is um, necessarily a waste of time
Right.
or it's not something you need to put away.
Yeah.
It becomes something that can, um, serve others.
Right.
And
Right.
experiencing that is so meaningful,
Yeah.
and and I know that it's big in, as and like service is a big thing in, religion and this kind of thing. And I think the important thing for women is doing it in a way that works for us, not giving just because someone's asked us to do something,
Right.
because someone said, oh, will you, um, whatever. Like I was in 12-step programs for a long time, and it's
Yeah.
like looked on very poorly not to accept an invitation, to do some kind of service,
Right.
just like it would
Right.
be in the church, right?
Totally.
Um, and the book actually goes into sort of like a lot of critique of religious-based
Right.
recovery models and things
Yeah.
like that. But when we find out what it is that we specifically have to offer the world,
Yeah.
that it's and with joy as our guide, like what really feels good to give and what really lights us up and energizes us
Yeah.
and makes us excited to give, because if it doesn't feel good, it's not going to do that much good either.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I love
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah. So it sounds like, you really have hit on a way of the giving back that feels good to you and like energizes you. And also because we know that's a frequency that's so magnetic and also like digestible, I feel like that infuses it with basically like ease for people to take it in and make it their own. So it also is making it more effective. Like if you like
Mm.
creating this, it's going to feel good to receive it. I feel like we've all had the experience mostly at church of like receiving but someone's clearly like bitter and angry. It's like no thank you. Like I don't know if it feels like you're doing me a favor but like you are not.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're giving from this ease and joy, even if what you're sharing is deep and important, maybe even like painful truth, but like, sacred alchemy into something bigger and better, it's kind of like, oh, I can like take that in and I feel the
Mm.
energy in which it was created. Like,
Mhm.
it's created in joy and it can like go down with joy.
Right, right, and
Yeah.
it's so much that's so much harder to, like, systematize, or, like,
Totally.
codify,
Totally.
it's not like it can't be controlled and
Right.
prescribed,
Right.
and, that's what makes it such a rebellion against
Yeah.
the the patriarchal structures,
Yeah.
that it's not something that someone else can tell us,
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so this might be so obvious, but how can people find this work? I'm assuming buying your book is like one of the first steps that people can take, but what else? Or is there a wait list for the book? Like, where should we send them?
Yeah, so I have a, um, a a web form thing. I have a
You love a web form
I'm
thing.
not, like,
Yes.
fluent in email, okay, but,
Listen,
which
she
is
writes
good because
books, people, not websites. Does both.
I only send emails when I really feel moved, but, yeah,
Yeah,
there's on my, in my link in bio type thing that will first of all, there's links to everything. So all
great.
of the courses and, the website I'm building, which is it's all there. It's just,
Yeah,
um and, there's also a get book updates link. So if you click on
great.
that, then you get on the email list, and then you get to hear when the book comes out and, about other related
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, perfect. And then if they wanted to work with you in like a coaching capacity, are you open for clients right now? Or is there like maybe a wait list for that?
Yeah, I do that. It's sort of on a case by case basis. I
Totally.
do
Yeah.
coaching just voice coaching in the Telegram app. So it's
Perfect.
asynchronous, but someone can email me or send me a message on Facebook or
Yeah.
contact me any kind of way.
Mhm.
I think the the website has uh, a page or something devoted to that. I should
Yeah.
know this. Yeah,
Whatever. They'll
yeah.
figure it out.
I think
This is step one of your sovereignty and freedom education. See if you can find how to
bet
reach
you
me.
you can. Yeah.
Honestly, no, the
You
motivator.
have passed the first test, yeah.
Exactly. No, but okay, we joke, but it really is. It's like this is the beginning. The whole process is part of the transformation. But I love this. And I mean, just to like riff a little on something that may feel like a small detail, but I think is profoundly important. You are modeling a life of freedom for
Mm.
them, for us. And so it's like, yes, catch me if you can. Who knows where I'll be while I'm responding to you? And like that frequency matters. Like the difference in
Mm,
my coaching when I'm like sending a Voxer message from the beach in Mexico versus like if it's my seventh month
mm.
not having left my house and I'm feeling like a caged animal, it is
Yeah.
palpable. Like one of these has more of a frequency of freedom than the other. And it does feel really important both to show for anyone else who might be interested in coaching that like this is possible to set up, but also for anybody who's going to be receiving your transmission. It's like, yes, you will be like getting my words, of course, and my wisdom, of course, but also you'll be getting the frequency that I am inhabiting. And in this moment when, like a lot of shit is fake, it's really helpful to be
Mhm.
embodied and to be true and authentic. So anyway, it's just like a minor detail,
Yeah.
but it's also
Yeah, and that's yeah, I know you really kind of have that philosophy in your business as well, and it's true. It's like it's not just about making enough money to,
yeah,
quit your job or whatever,
yeah,
because I've done that in a way that was still very stressful for me,
yeah,
and
yeah,
now it's like the most stressful thing in my life is, like, making sure that whatever country we're in, like, finding my little high protein packaged foods that I like, it's like it's
yeah,
really,
yeah.
you know
I love that. Yeah. Uh, I mean, and that feels like a good segue into so this interview series is with people who are in my mastermind, the Uncovered CEO. And I was inspired to do it because it is full of like amazing people. And I felt kind of like, wow, like I want to share this. And also, like, I want to anchor it in for myself. Like, this is so incredible that, like, these are my
Mm,
colleagues. Like, I do think of it as a space. Of course, they're clients, but like clients who become colleagues, clients who are colleagues, this community of uncovered, entrepreneurs in a moment where it feels like really important that we do have a community holding us as we like step into these visions where we may or may not have a ton of examples of other people doing it this way. Like most of us don't have like in our family or in our like close group of friends or neighbors a bunch of other online entrepreneurs who are just like, ah, yes, like
mm,
this is how I do that. And it's not that we need it, but it makes things easier, I find, just to know like there are a bunch of people who understand what I'm saying. Anyway, so that's been like such a gift to me. It's been such a gift to me to have
mm.
you in that space. And I'm just so curious, like, what comes to mind, if anything, about like what it means to you to be an uncovered CEO?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, it's come to mean more than one thing to me, and I
Yeah.
think the coaching certification that I did with you was so powerful for me
Mm,
in, just realizing, whatever's going on, like, at any moment, like, we can bring in pleasure and we can elevate any moment. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like, it's always appropriate to feel good,
Mm,
or to
I
let
love
ourselves feel
that.
good,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's sort of like the philosophy that I already had, but it took it to a new level,
Yeah,
of where I'm more conscious of every moment, even the ones that kind of could slip through the cracks. So there's that. And then I think the other piece is just because I've been in your sphere doing this work with you,
yeah,
while writing my book, which has been the biggest uncovering of my entire
yeah,
life so far. And, of where I'm, like, to be honest, I've spent so much of my life feeling misunderstood and underappreciated and not heard or not seen. And, it was a place where I developed a lot of resentment and bitterness, but a place that felt safe for me in a way
yeah,
too, which I had to realize that, as it was a trade off,
yeah,
and I was getting something out of being there. And so joining this uncovered world has
mm,
been about making the decision to move out of that space and tell the world, which is what I'm doing, tell the world like how I really feel,
yes,
what I really think, the kind of the stuff that most converse in my book, it's like the stuff that most conversations in the world are too fast paced and too surface level for me to get a word in and
yeah,
to contribute to, or to, tell the world who I really am.
yeah,
And that's what I'm doing in my book, and so that's what Uncover is for me. It's
yeah,
about shining light on these places inside of me that I really haven't shared as much with the world as I'd like to, and
mm,
letting myself be seen, letting my work be known,
yeah,
um, and I don't know, being open to seeing what comes from that, because I knew in my heart that everything I ever wanted in life was on the other side of doing that and all the
totally.
work around it. So,
And what a gift. I mean, to go back to the generosity piece, it's like, what a gift to us that you did that work because now we get the book. Now we get the work. Now we get everything
mm.
you post online, all your free content, all the things that you help people with, all the jokes, even, which like can feel so small, but like from one to another, it's like some of that is like deep theoretical and like sophisticated like repositioning packaged as a funny joke. And so it's just
Yeah.
it's so great. It's so great that you did this. But no, I mean, and for all of us, it's like that work that we most need, for ourselves around our own belonging and our own intimacy wounds and our own whatever. It is for us. And then it becomes like our act of service too and our gift. And I just really want to like hold that
Mm.
mirror up and like thank you for it.
Mm.
Mm.
You're welcome.
Yes, you're welcome. Literally, you're welcome in. You're welcome into Kelly's world. Get on the book list, get into her sphere. Just eat it all up with a spoon. I'm so grateful to have you just for this interview, but also just to be, yeah, working on stuff alongside each other in this world. Like, so grateful for this. Thank you.
For real. Thanks so much, Kim.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.